So first up, we have our hour-long panel discussion here, 45 minutes, with Automattic. Is passionate about making the web a better place. Come learn from Mike Straw, Code Wrangler, developer apprentice at Automattic, and Cesar Abeid, lead technical account manager at WordPress VIP Automattic, and the Automattic Creed and their dedication to open source code. So bring your questions for these idea generators. And again, they are hiring and participating in the job fair on November 18th, which is tomorrow. So get those questions going because they will be here tomorrow as well. And the talk will be moderated by our very own Dana Hall here. And I will pass it over to our speakers today. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Hunter. Hi, everyone. My name's Dana. I'm actually an account executive here at Power to Fly. Automattic is one of my clients that I get to work with each day. And so I do have the pleasure to speak with Mike and with Cesar today. First off, I've told you a little bit about me. I spend half of my time in the US, half of my time in Mexico, down in the Baja Peninsula. So very lucky to take this nomadic work to the extreme through Power to Fly and our distributed model. On that note, so about Mike and Cesar, I don't want to introduce them for you. I'll turn it over to both of you. Let's start with Cesar and tell me a little bit about yourself, something that you're grateful for today. And then, what's your experience been like in the military and what do you do at Automattic? Kind of a well-rounded introduction, if you will, and then we'll pass it over to Mike.
Sure. Hi, Dana. Hi, Mike. Hi, everybody. Yes, so I am Cesar. I was born and raised in Brazil, and I moved away. I moved to the US. I lived there for 4 years when I was around 20 years old. Then eventually found my way to Canada, where I live now. I live in London, Ontario, which is, if you look in the map, you can find Toronto and you can find Detroit. I'm right in the middle. And I've been here for over 20 years now. And I'm married. I have 3 children. And yeah, so my career is kind of odd. So I have a degree in electrical engineering, which I got here in Canada. And then I worked for over a decade in our family business, doing all sorts of things. It was in technology, but it was related more to the construction sector. And during that time, I was also a member of the Canadian Navy as a reservist. So I was what in the US you'd call an enlisted person. So I was ended up with the rank of leading seaman in the Royal Canadian Navy. I did that part-time. So as I was working in the family business, I would go do training in the evenings and on the weekends. And then in the summers, when I had the opportunity, I would go out to the coast, either Halifax or Victoria, BC, to do some training and like that. So I was never deployed because I was never active duty, but I was in there for 13 years and it was a great experience. And it got me, it was a great introduction to the military, to leadership and all that good stuff that comes with that experience. And then after that, those 10 years, 11 years with the family business, I decided it was time for a change. And I had basically 2 options. I could go, one path that I was following was to go like be a consultant, speaker, writer, go down that route, which would mean a lot of traveling, a lot of instability with my income and things like that. Great opportunity, but it would be kind of all over the place. And then Automattic came up as an opportunity as well, because I had a friend who worked here. And he had the same background that I did in engineering, and he was just so happy. And I talked to him, hey, can we get on a Zoom? Tell me about Automattic. And he told me, and it sounded amazing. It like I said to Mike before, like it wasn't like my obvious next career choice, but the culture and the motto of Automattic and the creed just appealed to me so strongly that I applied and got in, and then I've been here for 6 years. So that's a short version of my story. Yeah, so
Awesome.
Here I am today. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for being here today, and being given this opportunity to share a little bit of my story and a little bit of Automattic, and hopefully help some of the folks listening and watching right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cesar. Yeah, I was on a call the other day, and Zara at Power to Fly, shout out to her. She started our call with, introduction, your role, your background, and then what are you grateful for? And I was like, ooh, I need to steal that. Like that just puts a great lens on the whole conversation, right? All right, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm actually currently living in Ohio, but I'm born and raised Air Force. My dad was in the Air Force for about 30 years, flying in the backseat of F-4s. So I grew up, when people ask, where are you from? I'm like, well, I was born in Tucson, Arizona, and am from the Air Force. I've lived Spain, Turkey, all over the US. So growing up, and then when I graduated from high school, I took a gap year. And at the end of that, I was like, I still don't want to go back to school. So I joined the Air Force with the intent of taking my GI Bill, doing 4 years, taking my GI Bill. And I like to say that I spent the next 25 years getting out of the military, because every enlistment was absolutely positively the last one. And different things happened that I just kept re-enlisting. And then eventually I got a degree. I spent the first 15 years working in computers. First 6 was as an operator on mainframes and things like that, and then crossed over into programming, did that for 9 years, got a computer science degree. And of course, I applied for a commission and got it. And because of all of my vast background in computers, I got put into personnel. So I spent the next 6 years doing basically HR work for the Air Force. And then to wrap up, I moved to Athens, Ohio, where I taught ROTC for my last 4 years. Had a great time with that. Did have a deployment, one short deployment to Iraq, and then about 9 months in Kabul. Then came back from that and decided I'd had enough fun and decided to retire. And thankfully, when I applied for jobs when I was retiring, I went for HR jobs and for computer jobs. And thankfully, I got a job as a developer at Ohio University, and I worked there for about 4 years. But while I was in that job, I went to a conference where someone was talking about WordPress, and they worked for Automattic as a happiness engineer. She couldn't stop raving about how amazing her job was. So eventually I checked it out, and been working for Automattic now for about 4 years. I've done it really kind of continue the way I did my military career. I have bounced around jobs since I've been here. I started doing happiness engineering, which is support for WordPress.com. And then last year I moved to WooCommerce. And now this year I've been on an apprenticeship as a developer, which I'm just now wrapping up to basically be a developer on the WooCommerce.com site. And it's been a great journey. I have nothing but good things to say about working for them. It's been, it's been good. I will probably never go back to working in an office again if I can ever help it, because I love the distributed work. I love the company culture. I love the openness that I can reach out to anybody in the company at any time, and it's fine. And I'm just going to cheat and say that's what I'm grateful for.
Perfect. No, I mean, I think that's amazing. If my dad always told me we spend the better part of our lives, at least our younger lives, at work. So we might as well enjoy it, right? And if we can believe in what our employers are doing as well, that's the perfect situation. Get to go to work. You don't hate it. You actually look forward to the projects that you're creating. And both of you in more of I won't call it creative positions, but you're creating, you're helping move things forward. You can actually see progress in the products and services that you're giving and exchanging with customers. So Thank you both for that. And thank you both for your service. I think it's really cool to learn about two very different backgrounds. And everyone here in just a few minutes, I'm going to ask a few questions about Automattic, kind of more broad, and then we're going to zero in onto what I think most people would be wondering about is like, what was that transition like? So just kind of giving you a quick peek teaser of what was the transition from military work and never being retired, right? Or never re-enlisting. And then how do I actually go about finding a career? What does that mean? But before we get there, I've heard both of you mention Automattic's Creed. I've also been on multiple calls with your talent acquisition team, and they talk all the time, Karin, Jeffrey, Marley, about Automattic is truly trying to make the world a better place. Can you give some examples and some of the products that you have or some of your internal conversations? Like, what does that look like to you both? Mike, I'll call on you first.
I'm actually thinking of a prime example of, WordPress.com was the product that I started with, which is kind of our flagship. And when I was actually, I think it was when I was actually on my trial for it, and it's stuck with me as we just do live chat and email support. So you're just chatting with people, and most of them are just like, I don't know what's wrong with my site, help me fix it. But there was this one site that came up. I think it was called Starfish International, and it was this guy and his wife in, I don't want to say the country because I know it was in Africa. I don't remember the specific country, but she was basically building this to educate women in her village so that they could get an education and do more with their lives than just be at home. And he, like, his exact words were, she's going to win a Nobel Prize someday. Like, he was really proud of her, and it was amazing, like the work she was doing. And it's like, I just spent 20 minutes of my life helping this person who is going to just do amazing things. And that's kind of the story of a lot of the interactions that you have. You end up seeing things where you're touching stuff all over the world. We support this project called Out in Tech also, which involves, and that's basically, we sponsor and build sites for LGBT organizations around the world, including places where it's illegal, things like that. And it's, this is a volunteer thing, but again, it's part of that letting people have a voice where they wouldn't normally have a voice. And it's been, that's awesome. Kind of one of the things in the military, they always taught us, look at what's your mission impact of the thing you're doing right now. And so I always think back to things like that of, okay, these are the things that I'm making a difference in. So.
Yeah, just trying to find the greater perspective in everything that you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's a really cool story, and you remember the name. That's awesome. And you've got to both be working with people of all sorts, right? Like the woman that's creating her own company and helping to empower other women, or the stay-at-home mom, or that's trying to figure out how to create something that's resources for other stay-at-home moms. Like, I think that the internet and the web has, with what little I know about the actual products of Automattic and WordPress and so on, you bring something that has been traditionally intimidating to a lot of people that don't have a technology or engineering background, like me, maybe, that can barely turn on my computer sometimes. And you make it to where, like, I could create a website and I could start to help change the world in some way in my own flavor. Cesar, is there anything you would add on to that from your experience?
Yeah, I have a story that stuck with me as well. But one thing that I always like to, and this is actually, if you're in the military, this is going to resonate, is WordPress for me is a great banner to fight under. It's such a great brand with it's beloved around the world because it is so powerful and it is free, right? So I benefited from WordPress before I came to Automattic because, as I said, I was working with my dad's small business, and I built a website for that business using WordPress at one point. And I've been to conferences now representing Automattic, the WordPress.com booth, and the love you get from people that walk by say, "Hey, my website is on WordPress. Good job, guys." It's just so it's great to be a part of this this brand, and in a way, like in the military, when you believe in the mission, it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're helping it forward, right? So if you ever volunteered at your church or even work in the military, you know that there is that moment that I'm just here sweeping the floor. And in any other circumstance, I'd be like bored or upset. But because I'm helping this mission, right, it doesn't really matter what I do as long as I'm contributing. So I feel I really get that vibe here at Automattic, that people are happy to contribute in whatever way they can. And the role of happiness engineer, which is the role I started in, is you see a lot of folks who have chosen a career in support, but they come from other places in other career paths in life that, like you have teachers, you have folks from folks who are into the legal profession, and you have scientists and engineers and folks with degrees in English and literature who are because they choose to contribute and to work for Automattic in this capacity. So, but when I was in that role, one story that stuck with me that shows both the power of the product, which is WordPress, and also the company culture. Just as an aside, we have a lot of the company's fairly flat, right? So we are not like the org chart is fairly flat. So it's not like there's like 15 folks above you before you get to the CEO. There's like one or two, and we're given a lot of authority in decision making when it comes to customer accounts and things like that. So. So the story is like this lady came to support, to live chat, and was trying to renew a domain, for a website, and she was frustrated. She couldn't do it, and she'd been trying to, and she couldn't get the password right, whatever the problem was. And I started talking to them, and the story was that this was a website that her daughter started when she was battling cancer, as a diary of sorts, and the daughter passed away, and her mom, who I was talking to, wanted to keep that website going, but the domain was in the daughter's name, so she couldn't.
Yeah.
And that just touched me so much, because obviously this woman had been going through such a difficult time, and now she's trying to get support from some live chat, right? That person, yet another obstacle, right, that they're trying to overcome. And because Automattic gave me the authority to make these decisions, it's like, you know what, I'm just going to renew your domain on us for the next 2 years. So you don't have to worry about this. Go worry about the important things that you have to worry about now, and come back in 2-3 years, and we'll talk about this again. And I didn't have to ask permission from anybody to do this. And that really stuck with me, both from how we can help folks, but also the company culture that allowed me to do that.
Yeah. Wow. Whew. There was a couple of tears in my eyes, not gonna lie there for a second. What a beautiful story. Both very different stories and recollections. And, both, I guess, really good examples of a question I was going to ask, but now more of a statement of, on Automattic's company site, it states that your common goal is to democratize publishing and commerce so that anyone with a story can tell it, right? Whether it be this woman that her daughter passed away from cancer, or whether it be this company, right, husband and wife, that she's going to take over the world and win a Nobel Peace Prize. Regardless, like I said, with anyone, regardless of income, gender, politics, language, or where they live. I know Automattic and all the brands are extremely distributed across, I don't know, how many countries do you have employees in today? Do you know?
90.
A lot.
I just looked it up yesterday, but it changes. 92 countries, 116 languages.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And especially being somewhat of a more flat organization, I mean, you can imagine, to everyone out there that's considering a career change or actively looking for a job, Automattic, it's a very interesting and different culture, because of the two things we just talked about: how distributed they are from a location perspective, how many languages they speak. I would imagine some of your meetings aren't in English, right? Like, there's probably a lot of things that many companies and even Power to Fly can learn, from what you're doing every day to be more diverse, equitable, and inclusive of all different kinds of people. One thing I wanted to dig into a little bit more on this note of what your brands represent, right? Democratizing and giving access to all people, regardless of all of these different definitions. One thing I've heard a lot about is open source code, right? Even back 10 years ago, when I started selling technology for a reseller, I started learning what source was. Back then, it wasn't something I liked, because that meant that the deal sizes were were quite smaller. But now, realizing the importance of it and understanding that it does, again, allow more access for all people. Would you say that, I guess, in your opinion, like, how does this help to achieve this goal, of welfare and development for everyone? And I'll let y'all fight over it this time, whoever wants to ring the buzzer first.
I can, because I've got kind of an interesting shift that happened going from like WordPress.com to WooCommerce. I got to see that because it's all about democratizing the internet in different ways, and of course, WooCommerce is about democratizing commerce, and and I saw it in a big way with the things happening with the pandemic and businesses. We saw a surge in business because people all of a sudden had this store and now they had to get it online to survive a lot of times.
Okay.
And we had this completely free open source piece of software that you can install, and on a WordPress, which is an open source, completely free piece of software, and you can get a basic store up and running. And then there's extensions you can buy to make it do more, but like the core of it is open source. And I believe it's something like we're about 25 to 30% of e-commerce sites run on WooCommerce.
Wow.
And it's because, and the thing I really love about open source in general is not just the free, but the fact that the community builds the product. Yes, we have a dedicated team that develops WooCommerce itself, but also anybody can log on, look at the repository, and contribute to it. And I think it makes software better. It makes it more useful. It just makes it better because there's more of a broad, diverse perspective looking at every piece of software and as it goes through. So, and yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think we're just seeing the beginning of this, to be honest, because I remember learning to code in the 90s using, learning about object-oriented and all that, the concept of classes. And the whole point of that is like, you can create your own classes in your own code that can be used by other folks later. But that was before the internet. And I remember, oh, that's a cool concept, but when could this will never happen unless I'm working in a company and there's a big team and we're all working together on this, repository of code that we can all share. And then one day the internet happened, and now, oh, I see now, right? So it's almost like this was invented before it could actually be fully utilized. And I think just now that we're actually beginning to see the power of this, and a lot of companies, a lot of people out there are not yet in that mindset that if we put our brains together, we can create so much more, right? And I think WordPress is probably the prime example today of the power of open source and collaboration that's worldwide. I think the stats now is like 43% of all websites in the world today are WordPress websites, which
Wow.
is mind-blowing. And that's just, for building websites and applications. I mean, what else can we do can we apply the same concept to medical
Yeah.
to the medical industry? To what else can we explore? And so there's an excitement right now in being part of this industry, because we're like on the about to hit the hockey stick curve of open source adoption. And I've heard from folks like Elon Musk and Tesla, okay, we're just going to make our technology open to anybody who wants it. And starting to hear that outside of the web industry, and it's very exciting, and can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, it's just the idea, like you said, not even just the web industry, but just the idea that if we collaborate across all different kinds of people with all different kinds of backgrounds, regardless of what color we are or what language we speak, it's just the sheer definition of diversity from you grew up differently than I did, and you have different life experiences than I do. And maybe if we worked on something together, I would think of things that you didn't think of, right? Even I'll give you an example of just like leveraging the web, where I've never leveraged it like this before and tried to collaborate with people coming from my experience at Power to Fly. Is last night, unfortunately, we had some fireworks in town and my dog ran away. So we're still looking for him. But what I did today was this morning is, after walking around yelling for him, trying to find him, I went to Google, right? And I was like, what do you do if your dog runs away from fireworks? What do you do if your dog runs away? Like, where can you look? Just trying to find somebody else that had written a blog or that had written something that maybe I hadn't thought of yet, right? So just kind of a very like finite example of how I've really, after working at Power to Fly for 8 months now, learned to appreciate and reach out 5 minutes into a project for help or collaboration, versus just thinking like, no, I can do this. I can do it all by myself. I've realized that that's not something I should be thinking anymore with all of these resources out there. So what I think everybody's been waiting for, or at least me, because this is something that comes up a lot in conversations at Power to Fly and otherwise, is let's talk a little bit about what was it like to go from your career in the military to your career now, to tech, right? Like, you talked about your schooling and how you got there, but what was the transition like? I'll start with Mike. Being in the Air Force for 25 years, how has your experience in the Air Force, how has your work and service really carved who you are and what it is that you bring to WooCommerce every day?
It's the transition was interesting in some ways. Going from a hierarchical, regulation-driven, you do it this way, you obey the orders of those appointed over you, and you follow the chain of command and things, to going into a much more loose, much more flat organization, where it was more like, well, what do you think we should do? We don't really know the right way, so figure it out. And being able to ask forgiveness rather than permission on things that are just, it took a little bit to realize that we're driven differently, but the skills and the ethics, especially the work ethics that the military ingrained in me, definitely carried over to where, I want to do, a good day's work. I want to, contribute, seeing the impact of what you do. Part of our creed is that we're more motivated by impact. And so the skills translated well. It was the only real adjustment was the culture difference of being, like I said, a more open culture. Especially I worked in areas where I couldn't tell anybody what I was doing, to now I can tell everybody what I'm doing.
Sure.
And it was really cool. Like I said at the beginning, the ability to we have a choose your own adventure kind of thing, where yet you have your job you do, but if you see something that interests you, that you can see make an impact, you can usually get to be involved and contribute to that somehow. I mean, even when I was just doing support, I did a couple of code patch things, just like, oh, I can fix this, and did it. And it's now running on the system. And so there's always something new and interesting to look at. And so the career progression isn't an up or out kind of thing like you have with, there's no ranks or anything to move up, but you can always find new and different things to do that are exciting and fun. So
Yeah.
it's been it's been a good transition in the long run.
Big smile on Mike's face when he looks back. That's great. And would you add, like, coming from a longer military experience, and transitioning to civilian life, to other companies watching out there, or to people that are considering, working at Automattic, what are some, like, resources in your opinion that would help, with the transition that companies can be thinking about, or that companies can be talking about and considering offering to employees?
I mean, training of any kind, that's one of the things we have, is we can go expense like any book, any course, anything like that for something we need to learn or want to learn. And having that available, because, I spent my entire career going through training that I was told I had to take. And so being able to just keep doing that is really helpful. We set up it's not even an official employee research group, but we just had a little vets channel in our Slack that we just all jumped into and joined. And we just kind of periodically pop in there and compare notes and talk and chat. And so creating kind of a community for the vets, I think, has been a huge help. I'm drawing a blank on very specific, like, resources to access or anything, but like just having that, kind of like we've done with everybody, give you a community, give you people, give you something to listen. And yeah, listening to their specific stories and giving them the openness. That's one of the things I know for me. One thing that Automattic helped with a lot of the transition was from my time in Kabul, I have some PTSD issues that go on. And there's not a, dealing with PTSD program in Automattic or anything, but it was still like hey, I've got this stuff going on. And they're like, take the time you need. People that knew about it would check in with me, see how I'm doing. Just that supportive. I may not understand the thing that you're going through, but I know you need to do it, and take what time off that you need to take time off to take care of yourself. Being at home is really nice for that, because I can step away from my computer, walk upstairs and yell with my wife for a minute about it, or whatever I need to do to just kind of decompress and work on it, and then come back. And there's never, ever been an issue with, I need to take some time to deal with this. And I think that's really important, that just letting your employees be your employees and do what they need to do to take care of themselves.
Yeah, to take care of themselves and show up as their true self each day, right? The good and the bad of each of us, because again, it contributes to that perspective, right? Like, you having had these experiences, good or bad, has shaped who you are and the work that you do. Cesar, as an author and professional speaker, everyone noticed, I'm going to call out the amazing microphone that Cesar uses. I'm jealous. I need to get one. Whenever we met earlier on Monday, his voice just sounded awesome. So hopefully I'm not making you blush over there. But as an author and professional speaker and even business coach, you have even more opportunities, arguably, or a different set of opportunities to reach out to people and communities and inspire them to achieve their goals and aspirations with respect to technology. How would you describe the response you've gotten and the difference that it's made for you and for them?
Yeah, so the microphone is here because I'm a podcaster, and I think I failed to mention that in my introduction, but I do have a podcast that I've been doing way before I even started here at Automattic. And that is, to me, that's another example of open sourcing, because you create this content and you put it out there for free, and people use it and the way they see fit, right? So you don't even know how it's being used. So, I've been podcasting, and I know I have stats. I know that the show is downloaded X number of times in different countries, but you don't really know who those folks are. It's not like a blog that you can check, where the visit's coming from and IP addresses and stuff. People are downloading and listening to you, and you don't know who they are. But every once in a while, I'll get a message. People will connect with me on LinkedIn, or they'll send me an email sharing the impact that the podcast has had on their lives. And it always blows my mind, because for me, it's something I do part-time. It's compared to my day-to-day job and my vocation as a husband and father, it's a tiny slice of my mental bandwidth, the podcast. But to know that this is making an impact. So examples abound. So there is a woman who wrote to me from India, I believed. She had a baby, and she was a professional. I think she was in IT. She had a child, and she was let go of her job because she was pregnant, which is illegal in many places. I forget exactly what country she was from. So I don't think it was India. And while she nursed the child and, would take the child out for on walks with a stroller, she would listen to my podcast, because my podcast about project management, and that's the career she was aiming for before she was let go. And she was sharing with me that she was listening to my content while she was pushing the stroller, and it just opened her horizons to try again. And she just wanted to share with me that she had gotten a job because of the inspiration, right, of the interviews that I was sharing. What do you do with that? It's just like it's like a gift you receive, right? And it makes me want to continue doing that. And I think that open source operates in a similar way, because folks create the code collaboratively and put it out there, and people are using it. And Mike shared, the e-commerce websites, for example, that are possible because of the free code, which allows people to make a living, or especially during these times of COVID, when a lot of people got let go from their jobs. So the ability to use that. So I think there's a great power in creating something and putting it out there and let people use as they see fit, and without worrying about what's happening to it, because as they say, what goes around comes around. And I've felt this both through my work with podcasting and also here at Automattic.
Yeah. Man, I love the stories. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like I'm going to be fired up for the rest of the day. I just had this surge of like warm energy whenever you told that story about her pushing the stroller, and inspired her to try again. Our head of operations, Gina at Power to Fly, her message on Slack all the time is every drip makes a puddle. Right. And when I first read that, I was like, okay, every drip makes a puddle. Cool. Like, just taking it for the exact wording, literally. And then every time I think about it, I'm just like, oh yeah, like you talked about somebody sweeping the floor, right? Like that contributes to the mission. So as long as we keep the perspective and keep the greater mission in mind, our days and our true level of happiness can change. I'm excited to announce a couple questions from the audience. So I am watching the time, but I'm going to direct this one towards Mike, and then Cesar, feel free to hop in if you want to add anything on. But this is from, and I hope I pronounce your name correctly, Ceylin. What are the qualities veterans and spouses can bring that you may not tend to find in other employees?
Well, I think, one of the things like we kind of, Cesar and I both talked about was like, that ethic and leadership organization that, anyone that's been in the military, around the military for more than like 2 years is going to start learning some kind of leadership training. And so that you come into that where you can do leadership and organization and kind of understand projects. And, we're you're ingrained with like a basic level of work ethic that you have to have that's trained into you. So having that and seeing the bigger picture of where you fit in and being able to look at that is, just kind of those non-tangible traits that we tend to just ingrain in our military just is amazingly helpful. There's also the fact that, most of the time you're moving around to different jobs, new things, new places. So we have that ability to say, oh, this is a new thing. Okay, let's go do it. Because you just
Adaptable.
because like I said, I spent my entire career. Yes, I had one career that lasted 25 years, but I didn't hold down a single job for more than two or three at any time, and I was always doing something new. So, and then the other thing that I think is really beneficial, especially in this distributed world with the internet and the global culture we have, is that we tend to be more culturally intelligent. Uh, like I said, I grew up living in multiple countries. I've lived all over the world, and it helped me. I know when I started Automattic, and I'm actually the team I'm on now, I'm actually the only person in the United States on my team. Matter of fact, I'm the only person in the US time zones. Everybody else on my team is in Europe, South Africa, that area. So it made it easier to adapt to that because I'm used to dealing with people with other cultures and understanding that there's cultural diversity, and I appreciate it. And for military spouses, for military dependents, it's the same thing. You're moving around. My daughter, went to British reception. Her first 2 years of school were in England, and then she came back, and then we were in Texas. And, so she's learned the whole thing. And, she's a chef now. And I think she I think that's enabled that because she's learned to like appreciate different cooking.
Yeah.
So all of the just knowing the different cultures and how people operate and being able to interface with different people and get work done for people that are just from vastly different backgrounds than you is kind of, SOP, just daily process for everybody that's been around it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mental strength stands out to me from veterans. For example, I had a tough day yesterday, just tough calls. It's not like anything really that bad happened to me, but challenging meetings. And I had a hard time working the rest of the day, to be honest, but I have friends that from the military or not, but the what stands out to me is that they're able to just put their head back down and or up or whatever direction and just keep going, brush it off. Okay, let's move on. Whereas me, I'm just like, oh, I had a bad meeting. I'm done for the day. So I think that's very admirable. And, I know we have 3 minutes left. So let's wind this last question into kind of give your two seconds or your quick answer on this question, and then tell us where we can find you. If people want to follow up with you or connect with you, we'd love to hear that. So last question from the audience. Thank you all for submitting these. What positions are available for veteran spouses in your organization? Do you hold gaps in career? So do you know much about, and maybe neither one of you are on the talent acquisition team specifically, but just answer to the best of your ability, from your experience, where have you seen positions that are open to veteran spouses or Automattic examples of Automattic celebrating like a return to work type scenario?
Just quickly, I worked with hiring for a bit, and we wouldn't even look at the question this way. Our positions are available for humans, right?
Yeah.
And you are human, you qualify. So it all depends on what your experience is and what you've done before, if you have done anything before. I recommend you go to automattic.com/work with us, work-with-us. And there's you can see all the openings there. One thing I recommend is look into WordPress a little bit. Like I said, it's open source. there's a community, there's a forum that you can go and see people asking questions. People who have WordPress websites and having questions about them, so you can get a sense of what kind of questions are there, and build a website. Go to WordPress.com, it's free. Build your website there, tinker around, and see if it's something you enjoy, and then look at the careers that we have available and send us a message.
Awesome. Thank you, Cesar. And for everyone, Automattic is part of our virtual job fair tomorrow. So please hop in there. It's for 3 hours. And at the top of every hour, there will be a short presentation, and you can move around in the different rooms. And you can also go to Power to Fly's website. Automattic has a company page on there as well, where you can see all their different jobs openings. So we'd love to see you there. We'd love to hear from you. You'll be able to speak with hiring managers and recruiters at this virtual job fair and ask the questions that you truly want to ask. With the last 30 seconds, Mike, how can we stay in contact with you?
Well, I think I dropped my LinkedIn link in there. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me. And yeah, if you want to get in touch as far as jobs and things, the link that Cesar mentioned is definitely the right place to go.
Okay. And Cesar?
Yeah, my LinkedIn, and also if you want to connect with me through my podcast website, is pmforthemasses.com, as in project management for the masses. pmforthemasses.com. There's a contact me page there. You can get in touch.
Amazing. Well, thank you both very much. It was great to get to know you better. Thanks for sharing some personal details of your experience and of your work at Automattic. Hunter, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Dana. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Cesar, for that great conversation.